Hello, mate.
Good morning. John is here.
I'm going to quickly.
Hey, before we go too far, can we get David Millington's doing a talk on an AI bot? Has that already happened or is that coming up?
8 hours from now. Is that right, David?
I think it's 6 hours from now. At least that's when I have it on my calendar. But either way, a pretty. Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry, 8 hours from now.
No, I well, I,
Either way, a
I
pretty awful time
confused
zone
you.
for you guys.
I confused you first. I said 6, and then you queried me, and then I had to like recon because this is 6 p.m. our time, and your talk is 2 a.m. tomorrow. Like,
Right.
and I calculated that as, to midnight. 6 hours, easy.
I think the
Unfortunately.
thing is as well that like I get the time, from Barcadero who are hosting it, which is very nice of them, but I don't have a calendar event, and so I'm constantly changing time zones in my head, and it makes me terrified that I've made a mistake and I won't turn up to my own webinar. Um,
Yeah. Hey, look,
so
we've had presenters at the symposium conference not turn up, and then like an hour later they go, "I'm here." Like, yeah, the time slot's gone.
yep.
No,
Internal fear of mine.
Time zones. Who Time zones like magnets. Like, what are they? How does it work?
Well, I'm sorry for the terrible time that it is for all of you, but it's being live streamed on YouTube. So as far as I understand, it'll just be a replay on YouTube itself. None of the normal kind of sign up stuff that Embarcadero does. So it should be very easily accessible tomorrow, I hope. Um, if you'd like to see it. Because
So
there's no
when
way I would ask someone to watch something at 2 a.m. That's crazy.
I'll be up. Um, so we're not going to spoil anything from that talk, or at least not any major spoilers or anything. Um, would you like to specify kind of like the rough sort of area it covers, and then we can know what to avoid, like touching on
Oh, I
today?
mean, let's not avoid spoilers at all. I think if we talk about something twice, oh, hello, how's it going? I saw a
No, mate,
friendly
how you
face.
going?
Pretty good, thanks. Hope,
Right,
hope
right.
you're well too. Yeah,
I'm
look,
very
there's no problem avoiding spoilers because I mean, a lot of it is a demo or talking about other topics. If we talk about it twice in the one day, I think that's fine. Um, and I know you just invited me for a chat, so I'm happy to chat about anything. But basically, it's just an update on the AI that we were building that I know I've spoken to you guys about before in the past. And it has a bunch more stuff. This time we actually use it to build an app, and I put the app on GitHub so you can see how good or bad a job it did. Hopefully a fairly decent one. I include all the bugs. Well, not that there are any. There's one bug actually. But like basically the talk is just going through what it does currently in its current beta state. In terms of AI or anything else, I can talk about anything you want, Paul. It's all good.
Okay. I don't want to anger Ian either, but then we're not.
Oh, no, I mean, I wouldn't try to sort of give a repeat of the talk, but I know that the time zones and stuff, I'm sure it is fine. Um, but yeah,
All right.
I'm really quite excited about it because we actually have it now building small apps entirely in Delphi, which is good. Doing form design and stuff like that in the form, you know, visual designer, um, all that kind of stuff, fairly smoothly now. So,
I, I'm kind of fascinated by, and Geoff has been, like I mentioned, digging into this sort of things for. I mean, he presented on the AI stuff, what, 2 years ago now, Geoff, at the symposium. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was like what April 23 or something, or that was
Right.
like
So nearly
four
getting
four months
towards.
after ChatGPT sort of came out and became famous.
Right. Yeah. And like since then, like things have just kept developing, obviously, but you're on it early, and it's just the idea of the whole, like I put in the notes, the closed loop thing where you can set it going and have it kind of like reevaluating its own efforts is interesting and potentially terrifying. Not terrifying, but like, um, yeah, would love to know more about that sort of um, the whole thing. Any of your experiences? I also uh, put a note there about. I mean, I guess about. Oh, damn! What did I put? Um, Test documentation, and I think in a different post I said something about like like not a using it in a step-by-step sort of manner myself. Like I've seen it like over a long session, it then kind of like has got tired like a person might, it was like, oh, the tests aren't passing. But if I were to delete them all or like, make them all just like automatically true or something like no, 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 no. Nice try, but no, like I'd love to know any of all that sort of information about getting in there, getting your hands uh dirty and using these things. But other than that, like anything you want to talk about, and anything, Geoff, that you comes to you, and Rohit, g'day Rohit, has certainly been digging into some stuff we've seen in the forum, and so I I will shut up, which some people would
I'll
doubt would ever
share.
happen, and I will turn over the floor to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh yeah, that looks like a D.
You're trying to turn the volume down, it's just not going down.
I woke up and thought that you did think. I was this close to trying to be a sort of Matthew trucker.
Oh, Matthew. Sorry, Rohit, were you saying something to us?
Nevertheless,
I think there's
happy
a
to
bit of
there you are.
background going. Oh, Scott, if you
Yep.
could do the co-hosting.
I'm small,
Uh,
but thanks.
You're a tiny fiber.
Um,
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, so Paul, I think you had a bunch of questions. I think for me and Geoff, is that right? I mean,
Done, you.
maybe
yes, please.
go ahead and Geoff,
Scott
go
may
for
be a
it.
little bit in the background.
No, I'm
We always,
muted, guys. We got a lot of background going on. If whoever's got that on, can you just mute, please?
I saw this.
I got it.
Right here.
Yep. All good. All good. Thanks, Scott. Um, just if anyone is going to want to be sharing, we will make sure anyone can. There we go. Oh, we're good. We should be good to go now.
See, I probably spoke while you were dealing with the background noise, Paul, but so from what I understood, you had a bunch of questions for Geoff and me. So I don't know. I mean, pass it over to Geoff, I guess, or maybe if you want to ask questions and moderate or something, I don't know. But please go ahead and
Well,
Geoff, I'm really
let's start
curious
off
in
with
your views.
let's start off with open to everybody, but especially our two experts here, particularly experts. The easy question of where's the AI going to be in a year from now?
Either of us going to be, any of us going to be confident enough to answer that?
I think it'll be further along, and like it always um, it impresses me sometimes, like it amazes me, and then other times it disappoints me substantially when it doesn't do what I want it to do.
So it's like having a child?
I guess I think it'll probably be more. Well, I guess people's um, expectations will go up. I guess that's probably one thing, but I think we'll be more impressed, or at least accepting of it can do a lot more than what we thought. Just 6 months ago. Um, like I've just been playing with Claude Code and Open Code, and just the difference that I've seen with that, um, yeah, you can, and how it can work away for quite a while on things. It's yeah, pretty amazing, especially with the the better models like ChatGPT or GPT 5.2 and Claude Opus, I think it is.
Can I get you, Geoff, to say a bit about what open code is? And then if it's sort of in the same ballpark, maybe we can ask David to give a short summary of what CodeBot's about.
So open code, it's basically a program that you can you give it access to your source code directory, and it's got a whole heap of, well, it's got some free models that AI models that it can use, and then you can link in your paid uh, models as well through an API key, like your personal API key, and so then you can give it instructions to work on your code, and it'll basically look through all your code and find like the where the code is that it needs to make modifications to follow your instructions, and so it'll update it, and then it can compile a code, and if there's an error, it can then go back and fix up the compile error and then run it, and it can link in tests. So if you've got tests like unit tests, it can run them and check that they pass, and if they don't pass, it can then look at the code in the failing test and work out what goes wrong, and have a go at fixing it up. And if it run the tests again, and if it still doesn't pass, it can go back and have another go at it. And so it goes around in a loop, like loops around again and again until it gets the tests to pass, and then it'll stop at the end and say, it's completed, and give you a summary of what it's done. Yeah, so like with open code a few days ago, I was trying to get a Amazon API working, and Amazon have
I don't.
it's called Signature V4, which is has the request name and a few other pieces of information, and then it uses your access key and your oh, some of the account key or something like that, and it makes it a hash that you have to send with the request. And I've had a few goes at it before, and I've never been able to quite get it right. So I basically told Open Code to go and look up on the internet an example request, and um, and well, actually, it might have been Claude Code, but similar thing, and uh, use that to uh, uh, create a test to create the right uh, uh, code to create the signature that it needed. And so it went around a few times, and I was using the one of the free models that it was XAI's. They've got what's it called, Grok Code Fast, and it was having a bit of trouble. It was looping around and making a change and then undoing and that wasn't working, so I'd go back like an alternate way, and it was that was not working, so it was going backwards and forwards. So then I changed it over to ChatGPT 5.2, and it was able to work it out. So it took about 5 or 10 minutes to get that um, authentication right, and cost me like $4, which and it would have probably taken me half a day or more, and possibly not wouldn't have got it to work if I'd just done it manually. So it's you can get major productivity improvements.
So, Geoff, I've tried Claude Code, both as console and GUI
Yeah,
app, and that little bit of Llama code, and this is kind of in that same area of like giving you a like a thing that sits on top of your data and not data, code directories, and they're all kind of in the are they kind of all in the same basket in a sense?
pretty much. Like they're all sort of sending off, like looking at your code and sending off requests to the AI models to, and then coming back and maybe making changes to your code or running commands and stuff like that. So um, yeah, the model. I think there is a bit of difference between the models. Some are better than others, but there's also the prompts have a lot to do with um, uh, it as well. I was watching a YouTube video yesterday. It was like they call it the Ralph Wiggum process, and it was basically you start off with a like this is in Claude Code. You start off and um, basically create a requirements document, and uh, you actually get the AI to prompt you for various requirements and stuff like that that it needs to know. And the idea is that you need to specify things to make it um, that it knows that it's been successful. So you don't want to give it open-ended um, uh, tasks, and then it'll sort of go around and like it'll create a list of um, tasks to do, and then it'll go off um, and loop around and just it'll do one task and then the next and then and make sure it works, and then it just keeps going around until it completes them all. And so you could run it overnight um, and come back in the morning and it could have all your code written. So
I have heard people talking, and I guess they're developing more in the way of JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, maybe of I mean one of them was David would know the name a C++ well-known C++ developer who went into the Rust kind of area, but talking about leaving like something running basically overnight, which is
yeah,
like so far beyond my experience with any of this stuff, and like I think she wanted to make like a change to LLVM, for example, which is a huge code base, and in her first like week at she was working for Anthropic and something in the she probably has a pretty good like account budget, I would
yeah,
say. But there's some sort of change to LLVM that was she managed in the first week just by kind of like trying Claude on it or something. But
yeah. Well, I heard, I can't remember who it was, but they were having like 5 windows open at a time, and they were, yeah, working on 5 different things at once. Um, and to get that, like, the cost of that would be pretty substantial, but you could be doing things much quicker. So uh, I saw a video. They were talking about the cost being about 10 or 12, I guess it'd be US dollars an hour. So probably like 15 to 20 Australian, um, for these sorts of things. But yeah, you could do it overnight. So um, yeah, and I like another one I did. I came across a project called Delphi Indexer, and it had a Python script to handle decoding uh,
Fine, too.
Windows CHM help files, and I had another project I knew that could handle um, decoding um, the CHM files. So I basically got Claude to um, add in this. Well, it's a Delphi 7 zip DLL, and so I just asked it to do that, and it went away for a few minutes and added it in, and then it had just done the cheats way of doing it, like because what the code does is it basically extracts all HTML files from the CHM help file, and then I next told it to I want it to I don't want it to extract the files. I want it to work on using the files directly from the CHM file, and so then it went away and uh, updated the code to do that. So it's yeah, and yeah, with these programs too, is that part of the skill is of them is finding what it needs to in your code to uh, make changes to. So I've been thinking um, ages ago about using LSPs and stuff like that, which I think is what a lot of these programs use these days, which is basically a language service provider. And so they can like find functions and stuff like that instead of just doing a search for them. Sometimes they still do a search, um, and what that can do is it can reduce the amount of context needed in to send to the AI, which speeds things up and makes it cheaper. So, like, I think that's sort of probably what some of the big differences between the different, like, open code and Claude code and what is it, Google CI, I think it is. No, anyway, uh, the various different ones is the way that they can extract out the minimum necessary, and it's kind of like replicating what a person would do looking at source code. You got to find a particular function and um, have a look at it and get, examine the different paths and stuff to find out how it works, and then make the modifications to do what you want it to do.
Thanks, Geoff. If I was a better like interviewer slash moderator, I would have like managed to involve David into this conversation at this point. But David,
No,
can
I
you
was listening with interest. There are lots of things there that I align with and sync with, Geoff. So yeah.
can we hand it over to you to tell us, about the um whatever you'd like to say about, what you've been pursuing and, coming up with, and or maybe your like goals or now or future or all that sort of stuff, like.
Yeah, sure.
Your
By the way, if you
vision.
hear any background noise, I have a cat sitting right like just under the camera. A cat just here. So if you hear strange meows or something, that's what it is.
Or you
Um,
definitely can't move then.
no, no, I'm stuck. Um, yeah, look, there were quite a few sort of interesting things that, oh, you might just see like ears. His head has just popped up. Um, Quite a few interesting things there that Geoff mentioned, I think. I think a lot of it was about sort of autonomy, about running something overnight and planning and that kind of thing. And actually, Paul, you mentioned earlier concerns about AIs getting off track. Um, and I agree. I have found both those things. Um, small changes, I can just sometimes feel a little lazy and give to an AI. Not really lazy, I just trying to multitask. So even a small task will just go off and then come back 5 minutes later. But where I found AI really interesting is in some of the bigger tasks. Um, and I've we've sort of designed CodeBot to try to handle both those things. It has what's currently called plan mode, but I think it would be more accurate, and we might rename it to call like autonomous mode. As in, from the beginning, like 6 months ago, it's been really specifically designed so that you can, to the best of our ability, you can give it a task and then just leave it, um, and have it do it. Um, And it does that currently by entering a plan, and it will talk with you a bit and create a to-do list. This is very much like creating a spec effectively, which again was something that I think Geoff mentioned. Um, and it has this control loop for verifying its own work. And there are a couple of things with that. AIs can sometimes drift off after time because they're like humans and they get a bit overwhelmed. Um, And so it has this high level sort of spec, and it breaks that down into tasks, and it tries to keep AIs focused in two ways. The first is that it creates a new AI instance, like a new agent for each of the large tasks. So context is sort of started new, but previous AIs create a lot of information to give to the next agent. So the idea is they will summarize, provide all the key info, and then each new step will be done, fairly clean. And the second thing is that it has multiple steps of self-checking where it will do a particular step, like you have some major thing like, I don't know, implement the background logic for X. And an AI will go ahead and it'll do that. It'll take several minutes, it'll chug away and it'll write lots of code and all that kind of thing. And then instead of moving on, instead of just assuming, okay, this is done, the way something like Claude does, CodeBot fires off a new AI agent and it says, okay, this was, the overall set of goals the user is trying to do. These are how it's been broken down. This is the information that's been given. This is the claim that the previous AI said it did this. Go and find everything that's wrong with it. Um, and then it does. And then after finding everything that's wrong with it, um, because these are very like humans, it's like code review. Uh, I can think of very few times, like code review is one of the most valuable things I have found in a development team. It requires a bit of humility, but where I, put my patches up and then my colleagues will go and look at them and say, look, hold on, this, could be, maybe, have you thought about this?
Tear it apart.
Um, and we basically try to implement the same process for AIs. um, so that effectively it's code review. And so the AI will go and will suggest changes. It'll say, okay, look, this is good. It meets the goals, but maybe it would be cleaner if it was done like X or Y. And then we'll go back and the AI will iterate and improve. This isn't an endless cycle because you can always have more things to suggest. Even if you run out of specific improvements, you can have ideas. So you can't have an eternal loop. But it will go through that kind of thing at least once for every step in a task. And the idea with that is that it, just like a human tries to sort of review and iterate a bit while still making sort of progress through the series of steps. Um, I think that works well. Like it obviously makes the task take longer, because if something takes 5 minutes to do, then it's 5 minutes plus, let's say, another 5 minutes for review plus a 5 minutes for the rework, you know. But the quality is noticeably really higher, and it's something I really miss when using Claude. Um, so I think it's really good for that kind of overnight work where you just want to say, time is not an issue, but getting it done right is an issue. Um, and yeah, that's our goal anyway. Like everything else, who knows how well it will turn out, but I hope it will work well for everyone. Sorry, I just spoke for a long time. I should have
No, that's
like
barely even the start of it, David. Would you say there's kind of an adversarial element in there? Are you kind of pitching LLMs against the like
not
more
quite.
cooperative?
I think that when you have one LLM and you ask it to code review its own work, sometimes it can do a good job, but because it's very much like a human, it can be more sympathetic to its own work. Um, and so we are spinning up a separate AI to code review because it is clean and fresh and it doesn't have any motivations of its own other than the goal. But we aren't telling it to be adversarial. We're telling them both to work together. They are cooperatively improving, but with the goal of genuine critical examination. I think the best way to think of it is exactly the way that you would hope a highly functional development team of humans, where colleagues who really like each other and get along, but genuinely are code reviewing to make the code the best it can be. That same kind of attitude is what we're trying to get from the AIs.
Yeah, I didn't really mean to give that connotation in the word adversarial, but I guess you like what do you call it? Constructive criticism.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 That's a
Um,
good way to put it.
so do you one thing when I think I've just barely maybe mentioned to you when I was having some fun with the new laptop and running local models and being surprised at least by the at the beginner level of the results that I was getting back. And I was quite uh, pleased with the non-thinking models because of the kind of immediate response thing. But have you, or is there anything you've thought about in the because it has to kind of churn for a bit, and I know you can actually see the thinking output, I guess, in like Olama and different things like that. Um, like, what sort of feedback do you think we want as programmers while it's thinking? You is that
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, and one of the things that we've just added to CodeBot and is going to be in the webinar today is trying to show more of its thinking, or not more, but all of its thinking specifically for this reason. Um, I think that if an AI like that is executing a task you give it, then it's going to make decisions. And the crux of it is it making the right decisions or the decisions you would make? Or at least decisions you could be happy with. You know, the more trust you have in AIs, the more you'll just let it do its thing, but you need to sort of feel that it assessed something well enough that it made a reasonable decision or something like that. And so I think for me, what's important is to know what it decided and why it decided it, so that if I disagree, I can just catch it and pause it and correct how I want things to go and move on. The autonomous mode, that's why I put so much effort into planning ahead of time so that you can spend some time planning and then just let it go overnight, because overnight you're not going to be there to see these things. But if you're just interacting with it, you know, toggle over to email, come back to the AI kind of thing, then yeah, you want to know why it's doing what it's doing, as in its reasoning for making particular decisions. And we're trying to expose that a lot. So that it'll say something like, saw X and Y, the best way to do it is this, so I'm doing it this way because of something else.
Now, today on TV, there was a program about self-drive cars, and they've been allowed on American motorways. First somewhere anyway, they had them about a year ago, but since then they're a bit more common. And there's analysis as to how effective are they, what sort of trouble do they get into, etc., etc. It's a pretty good program. And now they said something along the lines of you're 6 times safer with a self-driven car. 26 times safer in a self-driven car than what you would be driving the thing yourself. Yeah, because it just looks at everything and maybe you blinking at the wrong time and you don't see the thing and what result that happens. But then when they analyse that a bit deeper, it's not 26 at all. It was more like about 11 or something like that. And they came up with a number of scenarios where AI just couldn't handle it at all. And one of them was a car that was going down the road and there was fresh concrete. And there was a sign saying concrete, go this way. But the AI didn't pick that up, and so it ran right into the fresh concrete, and the car got stuck, and got stuck in fresh concrete. And then there was another one where someone had a road traffic controller person at the side of the road, and he had a sign up in the air saying stop. But the thing didn't understand that either. And it was just stopping there. And the person holding the sign was waving his hand, come forward, keep coming, keep coming. But the AI didn't understand that either. And then there was another one where someone had a pole out the
So
side.
he had a stop sign,
Yeah,
which says stop,
yeah,
but he was giving it different info.
yeah. They're saying come forward, but
Right.
but the AI couldn't work that out.
Right.
And then there was another one where there was a sign coming out sideways with slow or stop or something like that, and this thing just wouldn't move. It would not go forward. Even though the person was saying, "Hey, come forward, come forward. It's safe to come forward, come forward," and they're getting upset with each other. The people in the car aren't moving, and the guy standing at the side of the road, well, he's getting all hot and flustered as well because hey, why isn't this car moving forward? And there's all the cars backed up behind it. So there's a way to go yet.
Hey guys, I got a
But the one thing I'd say
someone who
is
just came
when
back
I'm
from.
doing like searches, I can give it pretty sophisticated stuff, and you get some pretty jolly good answers. My golly me, you do. But then on my cell phone, which I just hate it, I want to get rid of AI. I can't turn the phone off. I've got to click a little. I've got to click a button, and normally I just click it again and it's off. Like 1 second later. But with this AI thing, I've got to click it. I've got to click it again to get down to where it's got its little microphone with a blue circle around it. And that's supposed to mean the microphone is live, but it's not. So you've got to tap it, and then you try and talk to it, like turn phone off, or even just phone off, or even just turn off. And sometimes it gets it straight away, sometimes, but more often than not, it goes away sideways and gives you a menu on the side, and which is it doesn't see that you want to turn the phone off. It says it'll tell you there's nothing to turn off. There's nothing I can turn off. And so you've got to go out and come back in and go out and come back in. And it's not just 2 seconds like it was if you got a push button. It can be quite frustrating because you've got to do this thing like 3 or 4 or 5 times. And sometimes I've just given up. I've got to walk away, because it's taken so long and I still can't turn the phone off. So,
Hey
on
guys, just
the phone.
Scott.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
you mentioned about the cars news. I just know someone that came back from Los Angeles, and they said that Waymo cars are all over the place there. So these are self-driving taxis. You just hop in the taxi and it goes off. They took a number of them and they said they were really good. Interesting feedback was you don't have to put up with an annoying taxi driver. Um, frankly, the class of taxi drivers in America is quite different from Australia. Australians, taxis are a very expensive operation to get a license, and in the US, it's a bit more run down, frankly. Um, and they said, yeah, it was nice just to be able to get in the car and not feel like they had to make small talk with someone that they really didn't want to. And taxis just all over the place. They're going to be, because their running costs are so much cheaper, not paying a person. They're just going to dominate the taxi industry. I mean, even to the point of competing more with Uber, because Uber's got to pay the drivers.
I heard someone online, probably in a video, mention that people, oh, it's from the Oxide company, but they're mentioning that people were like getting Waymo trips as kind of like just for the experience of being in a driverless car. Um, like when they like even just to like go around a bit and then bring them back to the same spot, um, as like a tourism thing. Uh, sorry. Two things. My brain is split into two at the moment. One thing David was talking about, like the multitasking thing. One guy in particular, Connor Hoekstra, who is he has done quite a bit on YouTube around programming languages and that sort of thing, but he works for NVIDIA and now he's in their kind of research division or something. And he mentioned about like, because there's like a thinking time or something, he's often got like maybe, I think maybe you said the same thing, David, 5 different windows open and um, like it'll be again, he's probably got a pretty generous budget on the use of AI help and that sort of thing. But and Les is here. General applause.
Hi.
And
How are you, brother?
Yeah, good, mate. Sorry I'm a bit late.
oh, welcome.
Oh, well, I was a bit late myself, so you are pardoned just like I was.
Good on you, mate.
The guy was saying there's kind of a bit of a a slight downside was a bit of a context switch between coming back to like when AIs have done their different work is to like, now what was I working on over here? Like if you've got more than, if you're juggling a few different balls, you got to come back to and just try and figure out what was I doing? What was the intention of this work over here? So when we were talking about the cross-checking, you were mentioning between generating code and then kind of checking if it had accomplished its aim. Do you kind of fix on certain providers, or is it still able to be generic across whatever people have like, paid for access for or not, either paid or not paid?
Yeah, people have asked a few times about whether they can use a particular AI that they want to use. Um, and it's a really nice idea, but the problem is that all AIs behave so differently that when you give them instructions, it's not really. I mean, the instructions themselves can be the same, but the way you try to extract particular behavior doesn't really apply between, even a OpenAI and Claude or something. And so right now we are just using OpenAI only. But although we have the infrastructure in there that we could use others, we're just sort of tuning it to try to get the best results we can. Um, and I think that the goal is we want to provide a really good service. And if things sort of can change under the hood as drastically as different AI models, then we couldn't really guarantee any kind of quality. And
Yep.
the only way to guarantee quality is for us to pick specific models and make sure that it works really well with them. So that's the approach we're doing currently. Um, Maybe things will change. Like in a year's time, you asked earlier, where will things be in a year? Um, I mean, the models are still progressing hugely, and I think there's a possibility that there'll be new models that we haven't even heard of yet. But also possibly we'll be able to get to where local models can achieve some of the same things that you have to get with online models currently. If that happens, that's going to be really interesting because it'll make it far more realistic to have, completely isolated systems, like running on a company's own private network, no internet access, that kind of thing, with something custom. And hopefully if we get to that point, then we'd be able to support effectively someone's own AI backend, whatever that happened to be.
When we all have a fan-driven tissue box on the side over here with two 16 gigabyte like GPUs in there just to provide our our local AI service.
Well, I got to say again to you, David, is that demo you gave us a couple of years ago, that just blew me right over. That was most impressive. I thought, holy moly, look at this. And yeah, so I'm not getting into it that way because I've only got version 11.1. But like my searches, just on the line at the top of what do you call it? It just very, very sophisticated searches. What if this and that and this and that and this? What happens then? And pretty much always there's a reply that makes sense. Once or twice I've pulled it, but then I think that's not unnatural. It can't be perfect at everything, surely not. But I wonder about the warnings that everyone keeps giving you about it. Is that you don't know when it's telling you lies, that it's not accurate, so you got to watch it. But how do you watch it if you're asking it something super sophisticated? How do you know that you're on the right track? So I think we've still got to be careful.
I think the more recent models are getting better and better at being accurate.
Yeah,
The
I
other
bet
nice
they
thing
are.
about working
Yeah.
with code is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, sorry, I bet they're getting better. Yeah, I bet they are.
Yeah. I think the other nice thing about working with a code base is that a lot of the stuff can be really easily verified. Um, you know, it can give answers by directly looking something up,
Mm.
and it'll research following the same way a human would. So it's not even often relying on its own knowledge. It'll go and find it out and report it, and I think that's really good for
Mm. Mm.
hopefully being able to trust it fairly well as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that makes 100% sense about when you're saying about from your point of view of like having some reliable, dependable uh, model that you're operating with in order to like conform your software to use it in an optimal way sort of thing instead of being open to the winds of AI, any like passing AI. But
Maybe I could get it to tell me how to solve Rubik's Cube. Because there's all sorts of people who will tell you how to do it, but I want to figure it out. And back in me, mate, I've been trying for a while, on and off. I might not even try for 5 years or something. Then I'll have a best for 3 months, and oh no, I've had about 35 of them all out, but that's not the whole lot. Yeah. So maybe Chat GPI or something could help me there, Paul.
well, there was actually a video about speed solving, and
Hmm.
apparently there's only as someone was describing, because I don't know anything about it, something like 9 different moves or something.
I think it's 23.
Well, I mean, for these guys, that they just
Yeah.
memorize like 9 different moves, but it's doing it quickly.
Yeah,
That's the
they just go it's solved in I think it's down
4 seconds or something.
4 or 5 seconds. Yeah, you think how they move them so quick?
Um, sorry, uh, LLMs. Oh yes, David was saying at one point about not getting the same model to kind of check its own answers. So how are you coming at that then? Are you taking maybe like haiku versus not? I mean that's the Anthropic version, but like haiku versus opus, or how does that work?
Yeah, I've been experimenting with that kind of thing a bit because there are so many models. Um, the latest check-in, though, has a lighter weight model for writing code on the logic that it's mostly following instructions, and a heavyweight thinking model for reviewing the code. Whether or not that's the best approach or not, I'm not sure right now. I mean, we're just still experimenting with all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you keep
but
experimenting. Only good can come.
And the whole point of CodeBot is that it's in the IDE, right?
yeah, I mean, there are lots of AI agents. I think Geoff was talking about OpenCode, for example, which is one that's just come up in the past couple of months. Um, but yeah, the point of this one is trying to put it in the Delphi IDE and make it really like a lot of agents are sort of good at, Python and TypeScript and stuff like that. And, they can do well in Delphi, but try to make it as good for Delphi specifically as we can. And that includes the actual integration. Like if it needs to edit the form, it'll edit the form in front of you in the visual designer, like proper inside Delphi kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the goal for it. I think as well, like a lot of Delphi customers often have code bases that are old and they can be worried about source code security and that kind of thing with just some random provider, like even OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever. And we want to be able to say, hey, you know, hopefully the fact that you know us and you know who we are means that if we give you a contract that says we don't retain source code or something like that is meaningful, trustable, um, as well. So there's that as well, just trying to be a bit more RemObjects has been in the Delphi ecosystem for 20 years, and so hopefully if you're going to use an AI with Delphi, you will trust them and that kind of thing is part of the goal as well.
Sorry. Damn, it's there and it's gone. Um, oh yes. So would it only be for like the very latest Delphi IDEs?
Well, that's
Like
a
from
really good question because right now it builds for Delphi 12 and 13, but that is mostly just because in the client I happen to use a whole bunch of inline variables and stuff, which I think if I get my versions correct, I can't remember now, but I think version 11 doesn't support. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can easily rewrite that with AI. I would never bother doing it yourself to support older versions. I don't know how far back we'd go. Um, a lot of this is that you kind of want to support Delphi and Embarcadero as well. And part of that is just having AI at all is really supportive. Could support Delphi 2010 and it would still really support the ecosystem, I think. Um, but a lot of it might be trying to, I don't know, Delphi is a lot better in the newer versions, with some of those language features that I mentioned. So I don't know. I think that we'll probably backport it as far as makes sense in terms of what we reasonably can in terms of the library features we need around REST and JSON and stuff like that. Unicode, is obviously is heavily UTF-8 based in terms of the network transit and I wouldn't even know where we'd begin with UTF-8 for something like Delphi 7. Um,
I mean,
but yeah, yeah.
I assume there is a spike of like if you were to graph all the users on their different um Delphi versions. It'd be some spike around 7. But then surely
I think
after that, it's
so,
pretty
yeah.
much be from 10 onwards, really, right?
But I
Like
think one of the nice things might be that, maybe AI can help people upgrade, because I think that upgrades have a kind of almost exponential effort. Um, if you upgrade from, I don't know, Delphi 11 to 12, it's pretty straightforward. Just got to install your libraries and do it. If you upgrade from Delphi 7 to 12, you've got so much to deal with. And I feel that that's not linear, that it's kind of not fully exponential, but definitely a curve just because of how much accumulates. Um, and I personally reckon AI is really helpful for that kind of thing. I would hope that we would be able to support Embarcadero by encouraging people to pull their code bases forward to newer versions of Delphi, um, where AI will help them achieve things that just because of the amount of effort they couldn't, didn't want to invest in a business sense, in a business cost, time cost kind of thing before. Maybe we can, you know, help with that kind of task.
do, do you feel does okay, sorry. Is being in the IDE restrictive in any way? Like, Claude Code and that sort of thing sits with a scope over kind of what Windows can see, in a sense. Like, we're in a console window and we're probably in a directory tree. I guess that's the kind of scope of vision that something like that can see. Um, I was just wondering if there was any sort of need for your solution to have something in the IDE, but maybe any other aspect that kind of sits outside the IDE to, I don't know, to talk to Git or to whatever, or
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, Geoff, and by the way, I feel like I'm talking a lot, and I thought Geoff said some really interesting things earlier. So, Geoff, please interrupt. Um, but I think Geoff mentioned some really interesting things earlier about compiling, and there was something else that I had just remembered and then just forgotten. Uh, but some kind of external tools like that. Um, and yeah, so the latest version that we have that we're giving the talk on today talks to both Git and Subversion. Um, and yeah, it can do source control and look at your Git history or your Subversion history and all that kind of thing as well. Um, I don't think there's any restrictions whatsoever by being inside the IDE because ultimately it's just software and you can write it to do anything. Um, there are some benefits. I think that being able to work in the form designer itself is a real benefit. Um, we have written some code, for example, that when it interacts with the form designer and works with components, we have some stuff to help check and verify all the various properties that it sets and all that kind of thing. And it's actually really helpful to be in the IDE with all the components loaded when you do that. Something like Claude is standalone and it can make a mistake by thinking that a non-focusable component has a tab stop property. I've seen this happen many times, even with Claude, and there's no way for it to check, and then you get a runtime error. Whereas we in the IDE have code where we can have this kind of stuff that is verified. Um, so no, there's real advantages to being inside Delphi, I think.
wow, okay.
What about debugging? Um, can it handle debugging? Because that's like a pretty beneficial process. I think that it'd be under AI control.
Yeah, that one is really exciting, and we don't have anything for it yet. So we just added support for it to use Git and Subversion and to compile and get the error messages and iterate on that and get code that fully compiles. We haven't written anything yet to debug. Um, I think that's a really exciting possibility because I do use AI to debug, as I guess you probably do as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're going to have to see how well that goes. A while back, I wrote a plugin which was the Parnassus debugger, and I found that it stressed the IDE's internal debugger quite a lot. There were stability issues, and that could well have been my own code around the debugger. I felt, but I can't guarantee that a lot of the stuff ended up being debugger itself when it was sort of automated like that.
Is that the
And I'm
multi-thread debugger or a different project?
that was the one, yeah. And so I think that when we add debugging support, which we'll probably do, we're going to have to examine whether we do that within the IDE or whether we sort of drive the debugger externally. It requires a bit of analysis. Something that other AIs, when debugging, find really useful is logging a lot. And rather than actually driving a debugger per se, um, it'll just drive the app and then add a whole bunch of debug output, and then analyze that. Sorry, I can see a hand waving. Yes.
Oh, it's just Peter. Peter is joining us from in
Oh,
French.
right, cool. Sorry, I thought maybe it meant a question.
No, I wasn't waving at you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I wondered if when you were trying to think of something that Geoff was touching on, maybe it might have been about like agents and that those other like LLM extension type behaviors.
Oh, yeah. So, like Claude, for example, recently added LSP support, and LSP is really great because you can query a bunch about the code model. Um, we have been heading very strongly in this direction from the beginning as well. But rather than trying to use Delphi LSP, writing our own code to analyze Delphi. Um, so yeah, that's not an. I mean, we have that code, but it's not shipped in the current version because we're still working on it. But yeah, we have a bunch of code that builds information about Delphi projects and the code model, what classes are there, and all that kind of stuff. And I think adding that information in will be really valuable.
Because I'd love to see better debugging because like what I'm doing sort of covers a fair range of subjects of which some of them I don't know much about. So I'm doing a fair share of debugging. But like Delphi isn't very good at handling it. It just gives you error 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, why doesn't it? And you should be able to click the button and have what error 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is and what it most likely is caused by. Case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, and that'll get you started immediately on kind of the right track. But otherwise you're scratching your head, and Delphi doesn't help you much. So I reckon what we're talking about here. I'd just love to see you a bit more down the road and see how that works out, David. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
I think, yeah, AI can be really good at making informed guesses. So
Mm.
you can say, hey, my app has this particular error. I've tried this actually. I was during development, I was getting we talk via REST to the API. And look, I'm not an expert on networking. Um, and having this network error I couldn't understand. And basically asked AI, look, I have no idea about this. What do you reckon it is? And it came up with a couple of hypotheses for me, and one of them was correct, and so
Mm.
resolved the issue based on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I reckon it'd be fantastic just to be able to say, click a button in the IDE and say, look, we're getting this error. Don't know where to begin. Just make a few hypotheses, and then once it has hypotheses, it can then go and investigate each one. That's a to-do list once you have several, and it can go and look at each thing and figure it out. That would be very cool.
So, does your process have like a way to tell it to um, like Claude Code has oh, I can't remember what they're called. You can create a like I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a standard operating procedure, like a set of instructions for to do things. Um, does your program have something like that? So you could have say you wanted to create like a you know unit tests or something for a project or something like that. So it could go off and generate uh, a unit test project or something like that. Because
Yeah, I think
like I've been playing around
is
with
it
that.
skills you were thinking of?
Yeah, skills.
Um, yeah, so for others, skills are basically like text files, like prompts, I guess, but they're
Yeah,
really describing when you do a particular task, here is the best way to do it, or here
yeah,
is
and
how
it
to do it,
just
or something
speeds
like
up.
that.
It can like they probably work it out, but it saves a whole heap of time by just
Mm.
having a small file. It can go straight to the point of what you're wanting instead of yeah spending a whole heap of tokens working that sort of thing out and sort of yeah. So like for creating unit tests, for example, like I would think that'd be a fairly standard thing that people would want to do, and like a lot of this stuff is just in the prompting, like so um, having something like to create um, unit tests on a project or something like that would probably be an interesting idea, I think.
Yeah, unit tests is something I really want, especially because people often have like old code that doesn't have tests. And yeah, the way we currently have it is that we tell CodeBot specifically for that purpose, hey, this is how to go and build unit tests. It makes sense for that to be customizable. Something we added in the latest version is heading in that direction, so we haven't got there yet.
Yeah,
But most of the bits that we had currently were fairly dedicated purpose. Like we have, specific instructions for if you're planning something and trying to build a task, here is how to do it. And so we have an agent that is really good at planning, things like that. But what we added was a sort of generic task agent. And the idea with that is that it can do anything. Um, but, you need to give it instructions. And the idea with that is to make it much more flexible. Like, the AI has a structure of like, okay, plan and write code and do form editing and stuff like that. But what happens when you get to just something, hand wavy something? And that's what this agent is for. Um, but we don't yet pass in the skills. We don't yet pass in the custom info. But we're definitely going in that direction.
Was
I don't know if that really answers your question, sorry, but like I would say yes, directionally, yes.
yeah, yeah. It's like we're like yeah, people. I think a lot of people are sort of coming up with the similar ideas all over the place, and um, like MCP was sort of one of the early things, and it's people the skills are sort of almost replaced MCPs in a way, um, because you can with all those separate uh, agents and stuff like that, you can reduce the context lengths and stuff like that to and make things get better answers because of the reduced context context length and stuff like that.
I think that's where it gets really powerful as well when an agent can just do, anything. Um, because people are going to be want to able to, are going to want to be able to do stuff that we haven't thought of. And yeah, that's where it gets really, really powerful, I think.
and initially when you were asking Geoff, I wondered if you were Claude. I was trying to think of what it was called. Like there's a Claude dot, what is it? Claude dot MD, where you can sort of set up like establishing parameters for how you want the LLM to talk to you and structure code and look into things or things to not look, all that sort of stuff. Is that something that's part of your solution there, David? Is that kind of a basic rule? What do you call it? Rules of engagement for the
I think it
software?
has to be. It's really key. Um, and we'll have to add that before we release. Um, right now it doesn't look for that, but honestly, the main reason we haven't added that is just because it's so simple to add, I guess, and we've been trying to tackle the harder task. But something I really want to have is, first of all, when you have that file, there's like a generic form now, agents.md, that is meant to work with any agent. Um, it'll always follow that. The other thing I really want is that when you open a project and you haven't used AI on it before, it'll detect and offer to sort of run that initial analysis and figure out what it recommends. Um, give you the opportunity to edit that. Um, and that too, I think would be really important. I really want the idea being, you open your project in Delphi and CodeBot will pop up and say, look, we've never done anything with AI this before. Let's sit down and analyze it and figure out, how to teach an AI about this. That would be a really good thing.
You do realize that being mentally off the square programmers, that when you release this software, we will then fire up Claude Code and your CodeBot and get them to start fighting each other,
I think the
possibly
more the merrier.
possibly to the
I mean,
death.
the goal is to be, as good as the other coding agents out there. But people often use multiple of them. I think our benefit is really the integration with Delphi and everything we can do to be as Delphi-ish as possible that other people aren't focusing on. Um,
Oh no, I'm
so
just
yeah.
imagining setting yours a project to, like, you know, make sure that the tic-tac-toe and the X always wins, and give the other one the opposite project and just let them and leave it to puzzle over itself for a week or something. See what we get out
Yeah.
of the it may turn into Skynet. Um,
Oh, there's an Anthropic employee who's been doing something interesting where he's been getting Claude to play one of the Pokemon games for a year now, um, and hasn't beaten it yet. But apparently it's improving. Every time they release a new model, it gets better at the logic, and solving these puzzles.
um, Rohit has a very practical question that I didn't even think of to ask, and that's like the price pointing sort of expectation around CodeBot, for example.
Oh, we haven't decided on that yet, so I can't really give you an answer. But I think what we'll do is there'll be, um, some sort of our internal costs because, we pay for the AI resources plus a bit just so we can have some kind of thing there. But we don't want to sort of try to make it unrealistic, just, something that is reasonable and is basically whatever you use is what you pay for, something like that.
Do you think your end of things will have to, like, is there some way you can slip side slip the whole direct okay. I do have a question. It's trapped in here. It's like, would you have to sort of like pay for AI resources and then charge them on, sort of thing? Or do you think you could manage to avoid being involved on that side of cost wise and be more about the usage of your software?
The way it currently works is that, we are billed for the AI resources because we are fairly tightly integrated there. And as I mentioned before, we can't really promise quality results if it's all very flexible. We have to
Oh yeah.
optimize
Yeah.
for specific models and that kind of thing.
So
Um,
people would have to be connecting to like servers that you guys are bringing up and that sort of thing.
yeah. And then, you know, we are billed and, we get certain usage, we track how much the usage is and then would bill based on that as well.
Sure.
I think it's important for usage to be visible and people not to get unexpected costs and stuff. So I think it should all be, very upfront. Um, what would be really nice is some sort of enterprise version where people can run it on a private server of their own without going to our own servers. Um, which I hope would not be necessary in a trust point of view, but I understand some businesses would want that, whether or not. Um, but that would be in a version, I don't know, 1.5 or something, I think. Right now we want to get it out and working well, and that means, yeah, that existing system.
So are you doing all of Scoodpine work on your own, or have you got a team that's sort of plugging away and burning the midnight oil, or what's happening there?
Um, oh look, it's mostly me developing this. I mean, I'm working with REM objects, and you know, they're very interested in shipping this together. So I think it's sort of a collaborative thing in terms of the dev. It's mostly me.
Yep.
Um, but you know, they have infrastructure and that kind of thing, which is incredibly useful. And you know, we've extended and built that in and that kind of stuff. You know, so yeah.
So you're the main man. So our hopes are resting with you, David.
You know, that's fairly terrifying. Let's see how it goes.
Well, look, mate, I keep saying I was just so impressed with that demo you gave us a couple of years ago. I thought, oh, wow, look at this. I thought, wow, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this stuff is hard, and there are plenty of ways for it to be
What
not
did it?
quite as good as it could be. So we're working hard
Yeah,
together here, trying to make sure that it works well.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Good on you, mate. Good on
So,
you.
is there a release date coming up?
um, Not for like a version 1.0, we don't have a fixed date, but you know, we have a version that we'd love more people to test and try out now,
Yeah.
or rather, as of the webinar later today. Um, but we basically ask you to email us. Yeah, there's an email form on the website. Put in your email and we will send you an invite, that kind of thing. We're still telling people it's beta or even, you know, late alpha or something like that because you don't want to overpromise these kind of things. Um, but I think it's worth trying out, being aware that it's, you know, at that stage.
Right.
And anybody else have questions that have come up in your thoughts while you've been hearing all this, or in particular Geoff as well? Or have anybody got a wish list of things to dump on David right now about the deliverables by we'll say December 2026?
I have a question actually.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So I find with Claude that it actually knows something about TMS libraries, which is what I'm using. So how do we go about training CodeBot with some of these libraries?
Um, yeah, Claude and Codex and others do know a bit about things like TMS. Um, what I would like, I think, is to put in something where part of the things about being in Delphi as well is that you can sort of look at what's installed and what's available, and I want to be able to add something where it says, okay, you have the TMS grid control installed, um, therefore you can write code that uses it because the user has it. Um, and I'd like to both detect that that's there and then this is thinking aloud. I haven't asked TMS about this, for example, so don't take this as any kind of promise. But I think it would be nice to work with, you know, TMS as well as open source ones like Virtual Tree View and get information specifically in CodeBot, um, you know, right from the source, you know, the best people about how to use these things the best. That's speculative thinking. I don't know if it would be good to do that or it would be good to rely on AI's general knowledge or not.
They,
Um,
things like that you could put into skills, I think, sort of
I
thing.
reckon you could. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good way to do it as well. I very much want to focus on being collaborative with the whole Delphi community as well. And I would love ways for people to extend and build and for people like TMS to be able to say, hey, you know, let's work on this and add a skill for particular TMS controls and you know, but the same for the open source ones like Spring or Virtual Tree View or something.
Could you say, I'm not sure I know, and maybe some other people don't know this skills thing, Geoff. How would you, so we've probably heard the words MCP and RAG, and this sort of thing. Um, how does what's the skills thing? What's that about?
Well, I haven't really played with it too much myself, but basically it's like a text file that you can basically give instructions to the AI to do things in a particular way. So you could do a skill for um, you know, writing or using a particular component, for example. You could have it like how you create it and what parameters and stuff like that. Um, you could have that all in it. And then I'm not exactly sure, but the AI can then look at all the skills, and when it needs to use that particular skill, it can pull that information out and use it to guide it on writing the code and stuff like that.
I couldn't click on the button. All right. Thanks, Geoff. So that doesn't replace, I guess, I mean, my idea of the little bit I know about MCP and stuff is like you had something that can kind of retrieve the local time and stuff like that and feed it back to um the the AI
Yeah.
interface or something. Is that right? Is that what that's about?
Yeah, so you basically have a API that you can call, and it's you basically it gets sent in the uh, AI request. It has a list of tools that can be used, and so the AI can then select the tool that it wants, and it'll give it parameters. So for weather, for example, it could give um,
The
the
weather, yeah.
town and the state, for example, and then it uh, so that gets sent back, and then the program it that's calling it sees that, and it actually goes away and does the call to get the weather info, and then it sends it back to the AI, and then the AI can do what it wants with that information. But like the trouble with it is when you got you know dozens and dozens of tools, it starts to fill up the context. Um, and yeah, so that's sort of makes things uh, yeah a bit more complicated and stuff. So with the uh, so what I think Claude's sort of gone towards is like it's got a I think it's got more like just one tool function that it puts in, which is like search. It does search for tools, and the tools are basically um, the skills, and the skills like they could have instructions on command lines, tools and stuff like that as well. It probably still could have instructions for uh, MCP. Like it's all um, it could potentially still set up to call an MCP. I think um, yeah, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of MCPs tools um, available now. Yeah, and
So
some are more useful than others.
something I don't think I said at all, um, because I introduced this thing about this whole like closed loop AI assisted programming sort of thing, and you kind of like DIY'd that, didn't you, Geoff? Was that involving a kind of an MCP thing where you had a query, the AI came back and asked it to compile or something, and then something was sending back the compile results? Am I Anywhere closer?
Yeah, I had yeah, I was just looking at a project that looks like from 2 years ago using GPT actions, and I had it to like so it had different it was a bit like an MCP. So looking at the code, it had like things to compile and
You're welcome to
um,
share, obviously, if you wanted to.
what. So I can post a link to. I haven't done much on it. I sort of. It was probably a bit ahead of the time. Its time because it had a bit of well, it did work for the most part. Uh, OpenAI it sort of gets stuck because it the responses would corrupts the file and stuff like that. It might have been that I didn't have the techniques to handle that as well either. Yeah, so it could edit, create files and edit files and compile a project and fix it. It'd get the compile errors and then automatically it'd uh, go and edit the file and fix it up and recompile it. And it had fix insight, so it could run um, a static code analysis on it, and so it could find issues in the code that like that it could then go and fix up. Uh, yeah, so and yeah, so from that I used it to create a few games, simple games, probably DOS standard games um, at the time. So I I demoed them. Uh,
At Symposium?
no, it wasn't at the symposium. I'm pretty sure I presented them to the group here at the time. So
Or maybe Melbourne?
yeah, so it was like Pong and Snake and Connect Four and Tetris.
Oh, yes, 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 you did show to us. That'll be recorded somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, and so that was pretty basic back then, but yeah, the ability of AI now would be like, well, even from what I've used, it's like majorly more advanced than that. And back then I thought that was pretty clever.
And would the same thing be done roughly the same way still now from almost from a couple of years ago?
Uh, well, that was using GPTs, which was basically calling a REST server. Um, it'd probably be done with like the MCP way these days.
Oh, that wasn't MCP then. That all right, you
No,
said Git GPT actions. Gotcha, gotcha.
yeah, yeah, they've kind of um, languished and been forgotten about for the most part. Um, they're still around though. I use a GPT not with any action, but I have a huge PDF file that um, on the PDF standard that I can it indexes, and that uses like RAG that you're talking about, and I use that to ask questions about the standard. So, and that's been quite useful.
Okay. Speaking about sort of like LLM knowledge of Delphi things, like David has, I mean, the Open Tools API that allows you to get into the Delphi IDE and do mysterious and magical things. David knows, I don't know, is it fair to say very well? It's a mystery to probably a huge majority of Delphi developers, I would expect. Um, I wonder how much the large language models know about this kind of very niche topic.
It's not something I've really explored very much. I know when I worked at Embarcadero, we put a bit of effort into trying to ensure new parts of it were better documented. Um, I think that they can be surprisingly good at figuring things out from the source. And if I were to write something using AI, I would point it at toolsapi.paz and say, go and see what you can figure out for me. It's not something I've personally tried, but I reckon they could probably do a fairly decent job.
Maybe some of that documentation from, is it Tony Hoare, the UK guy?
David Hoyle, I think,
David Boyle,
might
thank
might be the
you.
person you think of, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
been on for a while, and I expect that's fully integrated in AIs these days. Um, and his doc was excellent. Sorry, you might be able to see a cat right now has just decided it's going to walk over my keyboard. There he is. So, yes, sorry, just try and keep him away from things.
I'm sure there's some quote about, okay, I'm sure there's some somewhat sexist quote about that cats and women will do something and everybody else has to just sort of like manage alongside. Maybe I shouldn't dwell on such a on such a quote. Um,
I think
but yeah, CodeBot
every
was
sentient creature can be very self-determined. I had a neighbor's sheep on my porch a few days ago, and it very much didn't want to move. Um,
did it want to come inside?
I didn't know. It was looking at its reflection in the glass. Um, but when I finally got it into the paddock, it didn't want to go away, and I think maybe it was just lonely. I think it got lost. You know, they're
Okay.
herd animals. It wanted company. Um,
Is
so
it snowing?
right now, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's quite deep.
We don't have a lot of snow at the moment, actually.
Nah, nah.
Quite thin on the ground, really.
37 degrees here.
Celsius, obviously. Um, so CodeBot, to live in the IDE, it has to deal with the Open Tools API, right? That
Yeah,
like
yeah, it
that's an
does. I mean, it's a normal IDE plugin, and I mean, again, that's one of the benefits of being in the IDE because you can, analyze the projects. So when it, creates a new unit, it calls the internal tools API to add a unit and stuff like that.
okay.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think those are some of the more commonly known tools API operations. It doesn't get into any of the really esoteric stuff that's exposed in the API.
I always sometimes wonder how we can manage to have, for example, G experts or uh, CN wizards, and then like David's written, bookmarks and the debugger and all that sort of thing. And there's some, I can't remember, some other stuff that is all living inside, the IDE, all written by humans, and yet it mostly seems to coexist, other than for like key press codes and that sort of thing, I guess.
So you
Yeah.
mean to make some of these functions available to an AI or
Oh no, I'm just saying about just talking about the Delphi IDE and adding those extensions all in at the same time. Sometimes we have to have a shortcut key that's Shift Control Alt Left Alt Z,
I think, yeah, that's part of the IDE having been around for a long time and accumulating lots of functionality means that things like shortcuts are hard to find. You know, when I was there and looking after the IDE, I sort of idly kicked around the idea, and we never did this, but kicked around the idea of trying to create an alternate key mapping from scratch,
Right.
with just the most common actions or something. But the problem with that is that everything would be a different shortcut. People would have to decide to learn something new. And it's not necessarily, I don't know. There's all sorts of things maybe the IDE could do. I'm not sure who's looking after the IDE these days, but I have full confidence and faith that they'll try and lead it forward, and I think that'd be a really interesting thing to try to do to kind of sanitize the shortcut keys. But technical
Well,
complications there, but I'd love to see it happen.
some of the issues might be the selling it and then the public stonings that would be called for online by, 30% of the Delphi community.
I fully believe with that kind of thing is you shouldn't remove the old one. You should just provide a new replacement, and then the people who have been looking for something new will use it, while the people who are used to the way it already works can still remain using it.
So
Um,
basically, you got to wait till all the old people die off.
See what David said.
the thing about
What
that is everyone is steadily getting older.
Yeah.
So, um,
what David said was reasonable and calm and logic. However, that's not entirely the response model for everything that gets proposed about our favorite coding software.
I think everyone is passionate. I like seeing that kind of response in general because it shows that people care about it. So, yeah, I don't mind seeing some of the stronger responses. I think it shows people, are involved.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun. Um, okay, panning outwards a little bit, has I know that I have some stories, but I can't think of them right at the moment. But have you, in the last year or so, encountered like an asking an AI to do something or been in a situation where like what it managed to do kind of blew you away a bit and thought like this is actually great. Like we're uh, today I'm riding the top of the wave.
I think I definitely have. I'd be really interested in what Geoff has done as well because he sounds like Geoff, you've been doing a lot of this kind of thing. I know that has happened, but multiple times. I can't remember the specific instances.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. Like you just left over with the remaining glow of like, oh my God, that worked sort of thing.
I think the overall impression I'm left with is that sometimes it just lets me do the thing I really wanted to do, but without me having to spend as much time on it. Um, like there are so many things where, yes, I could go and do it, but it will take me a few hours, but I can just let an AI do it for me. And it's that general sense of just, being able to get more done that I'm really left with. I don't know, Geoff, what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, yeah, as I said, often impressed with what it can do and like amazed even, and then other times I'm just disappointed with what um it does. But yeah, like I I've probably the stuff I've been playing around with in more recent times. It's I was like in the past I've been copying and pasting functions into ChatGPT and stuff like that, and now I copy whole files into ChatGPT, and it yeah, it can help. Um, like I'm working on a pretty complicated project, and um, it so sometimes it helps me out majorly, and other times not so much. But like on new sort of, you know, I always have like lots of ideas for doing lots of things, and you know, not enough time to to do them. And I can just you know, get it to you know, go off and start writing the code, and like I Graham Greaves did a presentation last month for the ADUG. That was actually converting Delphi code to JavaScript, and he was using making it do lots of unit tests and stuff like that. And so I I I didn't want to convert things to JavaScript because I hate JavaScript, uh, but I thought the idea of, you know, creating lots of unit tests. So I've, you know, some of my projects, uh, I've used that idea, and it's enabled me to, you know, get code that worked properly, and you know, didn't have any bugs in it. So that's yeah, and I think that's got a lot of potential. You know, how you can, one of the things that people in the past, you know, writing lots of tests is always a pain, and you can get AI to do it for you, and um, yeah, so code can be more tested and reliable and stuff like that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I may need to go actually. It's been about 2 hours, and I just got a message that actually I do need to leave. Um,
I was
so if it's
actually
okay with you all, I may just bow out of this. Apologies for
no,
that.
I was about to say we probably could just, you know, pretty much wind it up right about now. Anybody would like, well, we get access to Geoff, but we don't often get access to David. So if anyone would like to ask him a 2-minute question or a 30-second question, depending on his. Anyway, thank you very much, David, for
Yep.
joining us. It's
Thank you for showing up and appearing. That's jolly good stuff, sir. Jolly good.
Oh, showing up is the least you can do.
good.
Yeah, look, thank you, everyone. And Geoff, I'd love to chat to you actually, or hear what you think of CodeBot and stuff. I reckon that if you use Claude and others, you'll find lots of things that you want it to do and that it doesn't do well enough yet.
Yeah,
But if you're interested in trying it out, same with everyone else, like drop me an email and give you access. Would love to hear that.
Oh, do you want to share your email address?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just
Row it again with the logical thinking.
yep.
It's 2 p.m. roughly where you are. Is that right,
Right.
David?
I just yeah, so sorry, I just put in the chat. It's david.millington@webobjects.com. Yeah, it's 2 p.m. here. So yeah, time zone overlaps nicely actually. And yeah, look, I'm sorry, I really do need to go.
Yep.
All right, sir.
Thank you all
Bye,
there.
boys.
Thanks a lot.
Catch you again.
Thank you, David.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
very much.
Cheers.
And you can catch him again in 6 hours from now, which will be, I guess, 8 p.m. his time,
It'll be 4 a.m. for me.
2 a.m.
Where is he?
Are you not on daylight savings in Queensland?
No, there's no daylight saving.
Okay. Well, we need more time zones, don't we? We need we need all the time zones.
So where's David?
David's in Estonia.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Geoff in Victoria is at 11 p.m. Is that right, Dave? Geoff?
Yeah, that's right.
Nearly 11 p.m. And Rowett's at 10 p.m. But yeah, I think I mean I'm happy to hear from anybody, but we could also wrap up relatively soon, I guess.